We have a separate project as well, which was funded last year, and I'm quite excited about this one because this is probably the biggest and the first time that the federal government have invested serious money into communicating responsible recreational fishing practices and really trying to improve the stewardship within the recreational sector. They're pretty serious about this, and I'm pretty passionate about it as well. I spent 3 years doing a project satellite tagging bluefin, and while a lot of people knew what they were doing, and this is working with the rec sector, there was also a lot of things that I was picking up along the way that just had become common knowledge but was a bit off the mark. There's also a lot about this species from the biology through to the management. They're very unique. They're warm-blooded, for example, so there's a lot of people that are still learning about transitioning on the mainland in particular in some states, from snapper and whiting, where you can go out and catch some fish, knock the fillets off and you're all good. You don't necessarily even need too much ice. Come to this fishery, you need a lot of ice. The commercial guys spend a lot of time processing these in particular ways to get the most value out of the fish. And that's what we'd like to encourage the recreational sector to do as well. So the Tuna Champions program is basically an educational tool. It's not about release every fish you catch at all. We're actually spending a lot of time looking at processing and value adding your meat. How can you preserve it to last longer? How can you use the cuts differently? How can we get a bit creative? So basically it's about doing small things, encouraging others to do the same. If people are not taking ice, encourage them to take ice. People will take gaffs and rods and reels and their lures are part of their standard kit. We'd be really keen to see freezer bags become standard kit, or ikijimi kits become standard kit, which is where you spike the brain, which makes a massive difference in the quality of the meat. So we run through a couple of central tenets. So we've got the catch, is your gear right? Other things you can do. One is, a simple one here is changing from treble hooks on hard bodies to single hooks. Handling, be prepared to handle them with care. That's not just for release, that's also for consumption. These things bruise easy, and if they're not looked after, the fish basically cooks itself very quickly and won't taste anywhere near as good if you look after it properly. If you're going to keep the fish, dispatch it humanely. Luckily for the fish, the most humane way to kill a fish is to spike its brain. It is also the best way to preserve the quality of the meat because all the muscles stop flicking, which means that the meat's not cooking itself. If you're going to release fish, doing it the right way, particularly if you're going to be looking at tagging fish, and this is an interesting one. We've seen people tag in places where you might not as well bother. It's actually probably more detrimental to the fish. So there are fairly simple things you can do there to improve those practices. And as I said, preparing, we're getting into the hipster movement and using cheeks and all kinds of weird cuts and different ways to prepare and preserve the fish. So everyone can be a tuna champion. We've got a website that's gone live. We've got ambassadors. And encourage people to get on. We've also got a presence on social media, and it's a really neat place to just maybe pick up some tips. A lot of fishermen, we all go, we know it all, but I think there's always something new you can learn. And for new people, get them on here and encourage them to have a look at it as well. Thank you.